All right, at this hour, we have breaking news on multiple fronts. One, Stormy Daniels' defamation lawsuit against President Trump. It has been thrown out, and she has been ordered by a California judge to pay Donald Trump's legal fees. By the way, expect crickets from the Stormy networks. Now, this is just the latest in a long series of public embarrassments for Daniels' third-rate, attention-craving attorney, Michael Avenatti. And meanwhile, Michael Brunson, the former American pastor who was detained in Turkey for years. Thankfully, he is back home in the United States. He met with the president at the White House earlier this weekend. He will join us on this show tomorrow. Also, our last piece of breaking news surrounding Saudi Arabia. The mysterious disappearance of a journalist last seen walking into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, in Turkey. If Saudi Arabia was knowingly responsible for this man's death, well, that means President Trump was lied to, and that means strong punitive action is coming against the kingdom. And now, as we speak, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, he is headed to Saudi Arabia in search of those answers. We'll have more on all of these important stories throughout the show. But we start tonight, 22 days, 3 weeks from tomorrow, until the midterm elections. Now, we have to cover what has now become, and we've been warning people, an extraordinarily dangerous political climate all across America. Earlier today, the NYPD, the New York Police Department, tweeted out this picture of the suspects who were wanted for vandalizing and then starting a fight in New York City Republican Club, breaking windows, painting anarchist symbols on the front. Let me be clear. Violent mob rule, it's got to be unacceptable in the United States of America. Those responsible, I don't care what your views, need to be sent to jail, regardless of political affiliation. But over the weekend, we saw several brutal clashes, near riots between groups in cities like New York City and Portland, Oregon. Look at this on your screen. Now, listen. This stuff has to stop. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to end up getting killed. And at the end of the day, we all need to be safe. This is what Rand Paul was warning about. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. We believe in free speech, the right to protest, regardless of your views. You don't have the right to throw punches. Now, like we saw with Antifa last week in Portland, blocking traffic, assaulting pedestrians, intimidating commuters. Settle your political disputes. You have your shot. In 22 days from now, whether this type of violence occurs on the left or right, we know it should be the duty of elected officials and leaders to strongly condemn these actions. Now, sadly, we can also report tonight, instead of calling out these mobs for what they're doing and this violence, they're being spurred on by demonizing political differences, vilifying people that have different points of view. It's happening from the left. This sounds like, you know, a call to arms or marching orders on behalf of some people, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. Take a look.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Please don't just come here today and then go home. Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
Michelle says that, you know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
Get up in their faces, get a crowd, and confront them and follow them into grocery stores, department stores, gas stations. Really? Kick them if they're down. Is that how we handle disagreement? You can't be civil. Oh, only if we win political elections? Bernie Sanders, the so-called socialist, he refused to even call out this kind of mob rule and violence that we have been showing you now for weeks, night after night. Take a look.
Should people who are Republican officials be disrupted when they're eating a meal at a restaurant? Is it appropriate for protesters to be banging on the doors of the Supreme Court? That's really what the debate is about.
Well, I am very strongly in favor of mobilizing the American people to stand up and fight for economic justice and social justice and racial and environmental justice. And I think we have to mobilize people. I am not a great fan of being rude or disrupting activities.
So Bernie refuses to take a stand. The so-called peace-loving people of Hollywood, they're ramping up their rhetoric tonight even more. During an appearance at a New Hampshire Democratic fundraiser this weekend, Alec Baldwin called for an overthrow of President Trump. Oh, is this really true? Is Alec Baldwin an anarchist now? Take a look.
The way we implement change in America is through elections. We change governments here at home in an orderly and formal way. And in that orderly and formal way and lawful way, we need to overthrow the government of the United States under Donald Trump.
Overthrow the government. Great words. Naturally, the mainstream media, they awarded that professional Trump hater, they gave him a brand new talk show on ABC broadcasting. Well, unsurprisingly, Baldwin's new gig, a spectacular failure. As a matter of fact, it set a record. His show garnered the single lowest ratings of any Sunday night network show. Even the CW beat him. Cable TV beat him. And while appearing on that extremely unsuccessful new show, Trump-hating actor Robert De Niro, he compared Trump and his allies to the devil. I guess we're the irredeemable, deplorable, Walmart-smelling, Trump-supporting, Bible-hugging, loving, gun-loving, clinging to God, guns, religion people. Now the devil. Take a look.
There's a point that, and many of these people who are now with Trump are going to be tainted for the rest of their lives. They are not going to be, people are not going to want to be
stick
around.
with him.
They think they want to be with him, and it's going to make them give them something, but they are paying such a price.
They will.
Making a deal with the devil, it's scary.
Yeah, another peaceful liberal, same guy who compares the president to Hitler, wanting to punch the president of the United States in the face, launching into a vulgar tirade at the Tony Awards. And that rhetoric from fellow left-wing actor turned activist Michael Moore, that's not much better. And his hyper-partisan anti-Trump documentary, guess what? Another flop at the box office, to the disappointment of many detached coastal Hollywood elites. And meanwhile, with Democrats, when they're not ramping up their over-the-top divisive rhetoric and lying to you, the American people. Now, nowhere is this more obvious than with Massachusetts Senator Pocahontas, as the president calls her, Elizabeth Warren. Over the course of her career, she has repeatedly, for long periods of time, identified herself as a minority. Teaching at the University of Pennsylvania, she actually changed her ethnicity from white to Native American. At Harvard Law School, she was once described as the first woman of color. She even published her very own recipe in the Native American cookbook entitled Pow Wow Chow. And Warren frequently touted her Native American ancestry. Today, she published, the results of her DNA study, and as it turns out, she's roughly 1/64th to 1/1024th Native American. And even the Cherokee Nation slammed these test results and said they were useless. By the way, today President Trump had this to say about Warren's extremely distant possible connection to Native Americans. Take a look.
Senator Warren released some of her DNA results that show a strong likelihood that she does have Native American roots.
How much? 1/1000?
Do you owe her an apology?
No, I don't.
What about the money that
I owe her. She owes the country an apology. What's the percentage? 1/1000?
I don't have the exact numbers.
Okay, tell me, when you have the percentage, tell me what the percentage is.
What about the money that you told her you would...
You mean if she gets the nomination in a debate where I was going to have her tested? I'll only do it if I can test her personally. Okay, that will not be something I enjoy doing either.
The president's right. This is obviously not a good look for Elizabeth Warren, who appears to be gearing up to challenge Trump in 2020. The president says, bring it on. Senator Warren is not the only prominent Democrat, by the way, embarrassing herself tonight. Hillary Clinton, once again, forcing her way back into the national spotlight, this time with a defense of her husband's sexual misconduct with a 22-year-old. She was old enough, apparently. Take a look.
In retrospect, do you think Bill should have resigned in the wake of the Monica Lewinsky scandal?
Absolutely not.
It wasn't an abuse of power?
No, no.
There are people who look at the incidents of the 90s and they say a president of the United States cannot have a consensual relationship with an intern. The power imbalance is too great.
Who was an adult.
She was an adult. Where's Juanita Broderick? Where's those questions? Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey. Now, what we saw from Clinton, what we're seeing from Elizabeth Warren, what we're seeing from the radical left, typical of the Democrat strategy. They lie when it benefits them politically. The double standard is so transparent. Now, this is especially true in red states. Democrats, they're literally now being instructed by party leaders, don't talk about immigration. Open borders, eliminating ICE. Don't talk about what we really want to do. Don't ever mention impeachment. Even though, by the way, those are the pillars to the Democratic agenda, should you give them power back in 22 days. Open borders, no more ICE. They want to take their crumbs back, eliminate the tax cuts. Endless investigation. It'll never stop. The list is 30 items deep at this point. No more deep state investigations, no more constitutional judicial appointments, and of course they want to preserve Obamacare and impeach the president. In Missouri, where Democrat Senator Claire McCaskill is in a tight race for re-election, this kind of two-faced political pandering, that's on full display. While McCaskill's trying to bill herself as a moderate, which she is not. A new undercover video from Project Veritas is exposing the senator as anything but. Now, by the way, we got this tape exclusively, and as always, we report, you decide, and it features McCaskill and some of her campaign staffers talking about the senator's policies on guns and impeachment and more, not exactly what she's campaigning on. Take a look.
But if we have the kind of year I think we might have, I think we could actually be in a position that we could get votes on this stuff on the floor. And we'd get 60. McConnell knows it. He just doesn't want to put it on the floor because then it goes to the House and then it's awkward because all those House members are total NRA folks.
So you would be on board with the bump stock?
Of course.
Bump stocks,
oh, I've voted
high capacity mags.
I've voted for most of those things before.
For a ban?
Oh, yeah.
But she doesn't like openly go out and support groups like Moms Demand Action or just like other groups that are like related to that, because that could hurt like her ability to get elected.
We saw this last week in Tennessee with former Governor Bredesen. Now we see it with Senator McCaskill. We reached out to her office for comment. Guess what? They're not responding. A brand new political ad is casting even more doubt on McCaskill's, quote, moderate image. If the people of Missouri really knew where Claire McCaskill stands, I don't think they'd be voting for her. She is basically a vote for Chuck Schumer. Take a look.
Claire McCaskill, caught on tape.
If we do our job in St. Louis County, you know, I can give up a few votes in the boot heel.
Listen again.
I can give up a few votes in the boot heel.
No wonder Claire McCaskill votes against your gun rights, against agriculture, and against conservative judges like Brett Kavanaugh.
I can give up a few votes in the boot heel.
Claire McCaskill has given up on you.
I'm Josh Hawley, and I approve this message.
And give up a few votes. Oh, okay. And we have even more shocking developments to report out of Arizona. Remember last week we first showed you Democratic Senate hopeful Kristen Sinema once called the people of her state and her state the meth lab of democracy. In 2011, she's in Texas. She's speaking, calling her fellow Arizonans that she now wants to vote for her, calling them crazy. She also promoted events at Arizona State University featuring a lawyer who represented the blind sheikh who was under a federal investigation. Blind sheikh convicted of the 1995 bombing, mastermind of terrorist plots against the United States. And tonight we're learning a new bizarre story about an anti-war rally also organized by Sinema, where she was summoning, not making this up, Washington Examiner, go check it out yourself, to witches. Yeah, witches, to reclaim the tradition of feminist witchcraft against the Iraq War. Her opponent, Martha McSally, was defending her country. And despite Sinema's unusual and, frankly, seedy past, this race is very much up for grabs. War hero Martha McSally has now jumped out to a thin lead, but it's a close race. Meanwhile, in Missouri, Claire McCaskill, who you just saw featured in the latest Project Veritas video, is also in an extremely tight race, all winnable, this case against Republican Josh Hawley. It's important to remember, McCaskill enthusiastically voted against Kavanaugh, against due process, against the presumption of innocence. And in Nevada, we have Republican Dean Heller. He's now opened up a significant lead. 7 points. That is an important race, getting him reelected in Nevada. We're also focusing on 10 more critical House races. This will determine if radical Nancy Pelosi once again gets her shot at being Speaker. We start in Georgia tonight, their 6th district, where Republican incumbent Karen Handel is being challenged by Lucy McBath. And in Georgia 7, GOP incumbent Robert Woodall is in a dead heat with Democrat Carolyn Bourdeaux. In Illinois, their 6th GOP incumbent Peter Roskam. He has a razor-thin edge over Democrat Sean Casten. In Illinois, 12th Republican District incumbent Mike Bost has a slim lead over Democrat Brendan Kelly. And in Illinois' 13th GOP district, incumbent Rodney Davis has a significant edge over Democrat Betsy Londrigan. Now, in Illinois 14, we have Republican Randy Holmgren. He's locked in a close race with Lauren Underwood. Maine 2, this is an important district. Donald Trump won this. Republican incumbent Bruce Colloquins, his seat is now being threatened by Democrat Jared Golden. And in Michigan 7, Republican Tim Walberg squares off against Democrat Gretchen Driscoll. In Michigan's 8th district, GOP incumbent Mike Bishop in a tight race. It's tightening even more with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin. And finally, Michigan 11, pro-Trump GOP nominee Lena Epstein is in an uphill battle against Democrat Haley Stevens. We are 22 days away from the biggest midterm election in our lifetime. These races are extraordinarily tight. Everything is at stake. Anybody that tells you that they know what's going to happen is lying to you. Now, if you choose to stay home, that's essentially casting at least a half a vote for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And by the way, if you vote for the Democrat, you're voting for Nancy Pelosi, because in most cases, 99%, they'll vote with her. And if you're voting in a Senate race, whoever the Democrat is, be it Tester, Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, Bill Nelson in Florida, Claire McCaskill, Sinema in Arizona, if you don't vote for, Dean Heller in Nevada, you're basically voting for Chuck Schumer. The Trump agenda will come to a halt. Endless witch hunts against the president will pop up every day. Impeachment will be pursued. Every single Democrat on the Hill, they're salivating over that, but they're not telling you. In other words, they're hiding their agenda. But if you like the booming economy, if you're in love with our Constitution, presumption of innocence, inalienable rights, due process under the law, the choice is clear. In 22 days, ask yourself, are you better off than you were 2 years ago? Is your paycheck bigger? Are your taxes lower? Is the country safer? Is the world safer? According to a memo obtained by the New York Times, written for the Center for American Progress, that is John Podesta's group, the third tank, also Third Way, Democrats have been advised, spend no time at all talking about immigration. You're out of touch. Just keep it quiet. Just like I've been saying all along, it's a party of lies. They are hiding what they will do in the hopes they can trick you into voting for them in 22 days. You get the power. You have the power to shock the world again like you did 2 years ago.